Welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Corporation of the Township of Plessis, February 20th, 2025. Start with roll call. Councillor Bailey.
Here.
Councillor Hurst. Present. Councillor Goida.
Present.
Councillor Schools.
Present.
So we begin our moment of reflection. Reflection. So I should have confirmation agenda, please.
The council approves the February 20th, 2025 agenda as circulated, and the council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. Consent item 6.1.11. Questions received from council seeking additional information and the corresponding responses provided by staff.
Can you move that, please? Councillor Hurst, Councillor Schools, any questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interests. Okay. Seeing none. We'll go to 9.4.1. Do
He's online here. Jesse's joining us online, so we'll just move on over.
Sure. Good morning.
Floor is yours, Jesse.
Yeah, so the application, okay, so an application was approved to sever a parcel from the subject lands by the approximately 1.38 hectares in size, with frontage of approximately 78 meters along Wellington Road 35. In order to implement the consent, what has to occur is a zoning bylaw amendment. A draft bylaw has been prepared addressing MDS as well, and also to prohibit the construction of a new dwelling on the retained parcel. One of the questions that had come up from the public meeting was the amount of lands that were impacted by natural heritage features and would be not farmable. On the retained parcel, there was approximately 10.7 hectares of land that appear to be impacted by these features. As mentioned, this is just based on mapping. It hasn't been ground truth. Approximately 37 hectares of lands would continue to be farmable. There was one other question about the possibility of conserving the barn, if there was any way to do that through this process. There isn't any way to do that through this process because the application is currently, a zoning bylaw amendment application is currently underway. So the way you typically would conserve buildings and structures is through designation under the Ontario Heritage Act. But with changes to the Ontario Heritage Act, you're not able to proceed with designation of a property after a prescribed event has occurred, which in this case is the zoning bylaw amendment application.
Thank you. So Fox, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, that report PD 2025-004 entitled zoning bylaw amendment application recommendation report for the property 4120 Wellington Road 35. And whereas the township and its expert consultants are satisfied with the application to amend the zoning of the property through their comprehensive review of the submission materials, therefore be it resolved that council approves the zoning bylaw amendment for the property 4120 Wellington Road 35. And the council gives 3 readings to bylaw 2025-075 as presented, being a bylaw to amend the bylaw 2018-023 as amended, being the township zoning bylaw.
Can you move it, please? Councillor Schools, Councillor Goida.
Yep.
All right. Any questions or comments on this one?
Just thanks to Jesse for the clarification on the barn protection. That kind of opens up conversation, I think, for down the road. Maybe we can figure out how we can help preserve some of these barns, whether it's taking them down and moving them somewhere instead of them just being demolished. So I'd like to have that conversation down the road. And thanks for the numbers on the farmable land.
Yeah, No further questions. I appreciate it. I think it doesn't preclude the homeowner from salvaging the barn as they see fit, but I think for this purpose, it's clear in my mind. So thanks, Jesse.
All in favor? All right, that's carried.
Thanks very much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Jesse. And then next, I believe it's you, Mr. Levine.
I think the CAO would make a very good auctioneer.
Yeah.
That, yeah. You want
Oh, thanks.
I just think if you
Thank you.
you get one of the originals. Mr. Mayor, councilors, the Mill Creek stewards apologize for delegating during a meeting that's clearly focused on budget, but timing's kind of sensitive for this issue, so we wanted to fit it in. We don't believe we need to remind anyone on council that the University of Guelph is not being a particularly, or does not appear to have been a particularly good steward of its Buslinch lands over the past few years, especially with regard to agriculture and the environment. In fact, a year ago, almost to this day, we presented to council on the Auditor General's report on aggregate and briefly mentioned the University of Guelph and its gravel pit stewardship. But many on council, as well as in the Buslinch and university communities, including faculty and students, won't be aware of many of the details of that 50-year plus stewardship. Not least of all because businesses like the university and aggregate companies, for that matter, have been known to take advantage of the passage of time with its changing composition of councils and communities to foster an illusion of stewardship. So the purpose of this presentation as part of our group's broader awareness campaign is to try to dispel some of those illusions. Last November, the university student newspaper did us the courtesy of joining us for a tour of the aggregate industry on concession 2, focusing obviously on the university's Mill Creek pit. The result was an article in their December issue, which is the second page, that handout I've just given you now. Their article, due to space limitations plus a few mistakes, naturally lacked a lot of the pit's background with which our community group is familiar. But interestingly, it did elicit an up-to-date administration response with respect to land stewardship. It indicated the administration either still doesn't understand the Buslinch situation or worse, doesn't care. We ran up against the same attitude when our group had an hour-long meeting with the administration back in 2021. After which the administration expressed their interest, stated it would follow up, needed to go to the board for consideration, and never did follow up. We had to speak to them again 6 months later about follow-up. Our group's review of Buslinch council meetings going back 50 years shows a repeat of that same attitude over and over and over again to multiple council resolutions, delegations, and university promises made to their own community and our Buslinch community. Given that unchanged administration attitude included in this student article, our group submitted a letter to the editor that ran in this month's issue of the newspaper, and that's the first page of the handout, providing additional details and drawing attention to this apparent inability of the university's administration to understand the communities they're supposed to be serving, both internal and external. Which brings us to some of those details, many more of which can be found by accessing the QR code in that letter to the editor. It takes you directly to our group's awareness website, which provides much more background than we can in this brief presentation. But with respect to a few of those promises, the promises began decades ago when the university verbally promised the Pioneer Martin brothers, if they sold to the university, their farms would become an agricultural research facility. I knew one of the brothers, Johnny Martin, very well because he was the last baby born in the log cabin on our farm. And I often dropped in to chat about Buslinch history. I can remember how proud Johnny was at the fact that his farm was going to stay in agriculture. This was despite the aggregate industry having made overtures to both brothers to purchase their properties. In other words, they chose to sell to the university rather than aggregate. What did the university do with that promise? After purchasing the brothers' 2 farms as well as a third, they declared plans for the research station had fallen through, and they had just recently become aware that the property had high aggregate yields on it. This was despite soil survey maps from a decade before, co-authored by the university's own president, Bert Matthews, that showed high aggregate, as I say, back in the 1960s. Even 50 years ago, that decision to turn prime farmland and significant wetlands into a gravel pit in exchange for dollars didn't go over well. The local newspapers were full of articles at the time in which faculty, students, and community reps declared their opposition, especially given the university's role as a champion for agriculture, the environment, and rural communities. The administration's response was to state, the well-being of the university is a higher priority than the environment. Obviously, that response went over like a lead balloon. And given mounting opposition, the university turned to promises again. Promises they said would avoid or mitigate any potential damage. These promises included a promise not to take every shovelful, very clear, but they've extended excavation limits 4 times since those original limits were improved. On the last page, you'll see a photo of Johnny Martin's farm, the southern part of the pit, before and after excavation. You can see that, like the Grinch, they left crumbs too small for any mouse, working right into 3 out of the 4 corners. On the left, you'll see the original farm with all its fields and pastures. A promise to limit the duration of the pit. They originally promised Puss-Lynch Council 25 years. Then, without further council consultation, they entered into a contract with their aggregate partner for 50 years, double the time. I should say 50 years or whenever the pit was exhausted, whichever came first. And with the pit essentially exhausted now, they've spent the last year, as you're well aware, hauling in gravel from pits outside of the township and processing on the site. A never-ending use, and a use that pays Puss-Lynch nothing for double the road wear and tear, as well as noise, dust, safety, and environmental concerns. They promised to make the site a teaching lab and a demonstration site for environmentally friendly aggregate excavation. But there has been no action along these lines despite 25 years of mining. In fact, the university recently replied in writing to this question by stating their aggregate partner is following provincial rules. That's hardly creating, let alone teaching, new standards. They promised to make the site a teaching lab and demonstration facility for rehabilitation, but nothing there either. In fact, they just wiped out the planned space for their promised Culture and Nature Center with their most recent excavation extension. And like most aggregate companies, illusion is a big part of any rehab they have done, with photogenic grassy meadows, unsustainably seeded on unstable silt infill, and recently stylish aquaculture farms in undersized low-flow pit ponds that can only cause pollution and uneconomic fish losses. Promises were made to protect the wetlands, but destroyed them. Farmland, but obliterated it. Water courses, but contaminated and eliminated them. The rural community, but fragmented it. Heritage homes and barns, as we just noted, but neglected and leveled them. And let's be clear, these are not just actions from the past. These actions are being taken by today's administration as well, reflected in their comments in that student article. The university applied for its most recent excavation extension in just 2020, and in 2015 applied for a significant extension that dramatically affected another one of our community industries, the Crieff Hills Retreat Center. Just last autumn, they were found to be non-compliant with respect to the movement of overburden off their property. I should say an action they promised the Ministry of Natural Resources they would not repeat in future. Promise they might actually keep since they have no other soil to move. The demolishing of 2 pioneer century-old homes plus their barns may have been past actions, but the 3rd century barn was only recently demolished, and the only remaining century home continues to be neglected, clearly being allowed to deteriorate until safety issues rationalize its removal as well. We're raising this awareness flag not because we're out to get the University of Guelph, but because we care about the University of Guelph, which is why we started this awareness campaign quietly 4 years ago with a meeting. We have to accept, though, that there is a distinct line between the university and its administration. The university's right hand, their faculty and students are doing incredible work in the fields of agriculture, environment, and rural community. The university's left hand Their administration, in our opinion, is continuing to support the destruction of farmland, wetlands, forests, rural communities, and worse, facilitating by their example destruction throughout Puslinch in the province. The university's Mill Creek Pit example has been utilized over the decades by the aggregate industry as part of their license applications. As recently as 2 years ago with the Lancy Pit extension here in Puslinch, and as recently as last year with CBM South Aberfoyle Pit expansion. Like any good magician, the university appears to distract government donors, students, and faculty with the results of their constructive right hand, while the destructive left hand is apparently tucking away tens of millions of dollars in revenue. We recognize the university, just like the township, has difficult revenue choices to make, and possibly never more so than now. But this administration has to ensure those choices walk the university's talk, living up to its role as a champion of agriculture, the environment, and rural communities, and exemplified by its own brands of living well, changing lives, and improving life. We present multiple choices on our website that the administration needs to make, but an immediate and no cost choice should be supporting Puslinch's resolution for no more below water table pits. Especially given the fragmentation of rural communities, permanent destruction of farmland, and risk to the environment. Other suggested choices could be made at little or no cost, unless the university administration is intent on maximizing revenue gain from their Puslinch properties, regardless of cost to their reputation and our rural community, a community which has stood side by side with them since the university's incorporation. So we finish by asking each of you as Puslinch residents first, and as council members and as staff second, to join with university students and faculty by accessing our awareness website and clicking on the prepared email, which basically just asks the university's chancellor, board, and president to take corrective action. Actions that will protect not only communities, including our Puslinch, but the university itself. Local papers will be carrying the same request to our community in the coming weeks. And a comment from council encouraging residents to speak up would be worth its weight in gold. It's time we all spoke together if we're going to have the university hear and respond to our concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Great presentation. Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, thanks for that. I don't really have a lot of questions, just to clarify your action plan.
Yes,
So I haven't gone to the website yet to look, but you have a proposed letter on there addressed to the faculty there. And
yes.
you're just wanting folks to sign the letter and submit it through email, or how is the process?
It's one of these campaign websites where more detail is provided, and then there is an email on the side that you could just click. It automatically goes to 10 recipients. You can choose the recipients if you don't want it to go to all 10. You can amend the email if you want, but if you want to just send the email as it is, it's just a very simple click at the bottom of the email.
And what's your time frame that you're sort of running this?
Time frame is wide open, but we're, as I say, the sooner we get messages to these 3 top people at the university, the sooner we can expect some action from them, hopefully. So Puslinch Pioneer will be carrying the article in the next issue, as well as Guelph Today and Puslinch Today. Obviously, the letter to the editor is in the Ontarian. Faculty at the university are following up, including the Royal Science faculty. So essentially in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But if some kind of indication from council supporting this awareness campaign could be made to Puslinch residents in the next, be a kind of time before the Puslinch Pioneer comes out, that would really assist in getting some kind of response, I think.
And then do you have a meeting set up with faculty to then follow through with all of that? Is that your?
With administration?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, as I say, we've spoken to administration, and literally there's not been response other than listening. They're not hearing, they're listening. And certainly, council will be aware of the response that Royal City Science has been getting as well, when it comes to the Mill Creek Pit, the same stalemate as to we're waiting for our contract to end, which according to what we can read in the contract is not applicable. and installing on along those lines.
Well, thanks.
Okay.
Counselor Hurst?
Yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate the level of detail you went into, like well thoughtful, well researched. Yeah, I have to admit, you know, as a I'm undergrad and master's at Guelph, and it's baffling to understand, you know, I think you touched on a point, the difference between the academic world and the administration aspect of it. So I think it's, yeah, alarming that this is going on. I commend you for elevating this. Certainly, I'm supportive. I'll be submitting my letter. I'll maybe leave it to the mayor as to the level of engagement at the township per se, but I think this is really important. You know, I think for both the community and the environment to raise these issues and concerns. And you know, if I look at it as a farm owner and I gifted or sold one of my farms to the university under the context that it's to be used for a certain thing, and then it's no longer, I'd be very disappointed. I'll leave it at that. So thank you.
And the website, I should say, points out another situation south of Cambridge with the Crookston Park Farm. That was also left to the University of Guelph, 1,000 acres of Carolinian forest, prime agricultural land sitting on the Grand River. And when the family left it to the University of Guelph, it was the intent of being again an agricultural station. And it has been sold, or was going to be sold potentially to Grapple, except the community stepped in and raised money to make it into the Rare Research Center. So.
Thank you. Counselor Goyette?
John, and thanks. I always find the information that you give us and your presentation is really well articulated and really informative. I was wondering, just on the point that you're talking about the administration sort of working entirely in silo from the faculty and the students. I'm not really well versed in how the university operates and the different levels of management, but because like the university is a huge agricultural school, and is there any kind of group that represents the faculty separate from the sort of like University of Guelph administration umbrella, like one that would just have the faculty involved? Like, is there any awareness that can be brought to sort of like smaller scale groups to build the awareness up to the administration, like working from the bottom up kind of thing?
It's a good point, Councillor Goyette, and certainly something we'll need to follow up on. Yes, we thought the university students were the grassroots level to start at. And the faculty would also be accessing the student paper as we find. So hopefully it's reached through there, but there could well be a specific faculty body that is more than worth touching base. And on that same point, I would like to point out, we've become more aware as a group of just how big the university is. I mean, I had no idea that their budget exceeded $500 million, and makes us as a township look puny. And you realize just what they're dealing with, and not just that, but literally $100 million in deficit every year over the last few years. So they have huge problems. But unfortunately, in talking about this siloing of, as Councillor Hurst has mentioned, the academic side and the administrative side, it's very clear that that appears to be a problem. In talking to the faculty, because they're very clear memos sent out to the faculty on the web from the University of Guelph state they want programs cut that are not high revenue programs. In other words, programs that don't have 400 students to a class. Labs that have 20 or 30 students to a class are just too expensive to maintain now. And yet that is what any of us who went to the university, including Guelph, know were the most important classes we attended. Those kind of hands-on kind of thing. So that attitude just seems to be, as I say, doing in the university as much as it is doing in our local communities. It seems to be just out of touch with their own community as well as ours.
And their own student.
Oh, when I say their own community, I'm talking about faculty and students, yes. Now, the students can't help but come out with diplomas that people are not going to respect. I mean, if I was looking to hire somebody from the University of Guelph compared to 20 years ago, it would no longer carry the cachet it does in the field of environment or agriculture or, rural community development.
And they may not even realize that that's they might not even realize that.
The students.
Right.
Oh, absolutely, until they go to that first job and, the University of Guelph, kind of thing, yes, absolutely,
Disagree with you, Tony.
yeah,
Anyway.
and
thank
it
you.
can be changed,
Yeah.
that's the sad part.
Councillor Scholes.
This seems a little bit Orwellian doublespeak, saying two things from one mouth type of thing. This is U of G I'm referring to. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. I really am disappointed with U of G continues to disappoint me. One of the reasons why our kids went to U of G was that they had a good reputation. And certainly this attitude by them of slamming the environment just simply to make a few extra bucks when they in fact we point out that their $500 million budget, well, I'm going to be made from gravel, it's certainly not enough to cover the whatever shortfall that they may have as a result of being poorly managed. Question to staff, aggregate study, Courtney, when's that planning to come up?
So if you, Mr. Chair, we're hoping for March or April meeting. We have the draft report. We're just in the process of reviewing it.
That'll be good for something we piggyback some of this information on. Secondly, Courtney, for council to endorse John's suggestion, any issues with having that as a motion?
So if you, Mr. Chair, I've drafted just in addition to receiving for information that council endorses the Mill Creek Stewardship Association initiative regarding the Mill Creek pit. I think it's appropriate to just endorse it, and then should anybody choose to submit letters, they can do that on their own.
Could we also make a reference on our website to?
You, Mr. Chair, let us take that away and we'll
Sure.
see what we could do.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the presentation, John. It's always appreciated. I'm a little concerned about endorsing it today. I would rather see the motion, whether we give staff permission to endorse it after their review, because I'm not sure how much you've been able to review from the time of delegation submission to QR code. You know what I mean? I'm at a high level. Yeah, I'm supportive, but I just wanted to give staff that opportunity. So that's my only.
Motion subject to staff's review and concurrence.
So that's just the one. The other thing I want to state is there's been some statements made, and I'm not being critical, but sorry, John, but poorly managed. That's not the position of the corporation that we feel the University of Guelph was poorly managed. We just, from their financial reporting, that they have $100 million deficit. So that's where that comment comes from. That's not the official position of the township. That I know.
And that's my official position.
I'm just covering. And similar to Councillor Gordon, you made a statement. Oh, referencing that their diplomas wouldn't be recognized as well, or if students are going for a point. That's not the position of the corporation. Recognizing that there's the changes up there, and so clear that. I have a bunch of points here, and I'm going to be bouncing.
Could I just make one quick comment, Mayor? I think it's important that council consider and staff making exactly that statement, that it has to become almost personal, and that staff say, we will be thinking twice about hiring University of Guelph people, given the way they're handling our community. There has to be a back and forth here, so that the university can't just say, oh, nothing's really happening. We can carry on doing what we're doing.
I'll let staff take that away.
Oh, yeah, okay, absolutely.
We'll put it on the spot today, but there has to be, can't just be out of spite. Has to be
Oh,
something
no,
that they can put some foundation to it.
absolutely.
I have confidence in the CAO to shoulder through that. One thing I would like to see you champion for us in the community is that any purchase agreements or donations to any organization, that the language in them be very solid on what the end uses shall be. IFOI, for lack of a proper term, donation agreements for other properties in the township. The University of Guelph owns other properties. One of them specifically in the Greenbelt. I don't know if there's aggregate in it or not. There's aggregate everywhere in Coastal. So let's just assume there's aggregate in it. And my concern was that, you know, that'll be Mill Creek 2.0. And I got the agreement. Sorry, Councilor Coyle, I was wrestling through my bag, but I carried it with me for 5 years. And it's not in there. I think I'm sick of carrying it, but I do have it. And, you know, there's probably from memory, half a dozen to 10 bullet points of what should be done there. But the very last bullet point, and I'm summarizing, says, well, unless the university decides that there's a better use of the land. So it just wipes out everything above. So when you're long gone, you or the donator or the seller, you know, they can, it's better for the university. So my advice would be to people that are going to be selling their lands to the university or any rare or conservation lands, make that rock solid. These are the permitted uses and stop. Because otherwise that catch-all, they can change because the priorities change. So that would be excellent. We had a meeting down in concession 2 that operating an area pit, Minister of Natural Resources attended. It's for another fish farming setup. We've been trying to get meetings with the University of Guelph for a long time. And they haven't transpired. I was surprised, but not surprised to see representatives from the University of Guelph at this presentation of fish farming. So my assumption would be that they are actively looking at fish farming as another revenue means for, you know, their deficit concerns or possibly the Mill Creek pit. I would like you in your personal perspective of living on concession to you know, tell us what you're experiencing with those fish farms that are operating there currently. And also, if you have any background on the operation, the new operation, they were drag lining, they were taking it down to 50 feet. So what I've heard is that the water is too warm in the summer. And I'd actually asked you this question offline. I said, are they taking it down 50 feet to make the water cooler to prevent the fish kill, which you referenced in your presentation today? So if you could give your experience of living down there with this fish farming, some of the complications in your opinion, you feel like, I know you're a licensed vet. I don't know if you're a fish expert, I don't think that's a term, but I know you're a very knowledgeable individual. What your Yeah. And you know, if digging deeper helps that situation or not, anyways, I'll leave it with you for now.
Nope, that's good. It would be another delegation because there is that much material.
Okay.
When it comes to the pit ponds and water flow, groundwater flow, total volumes, depths, where the fish lie, inlet, where the fish tend to sit when they're in these pens. For instance, depth is incidental. I mean, fish just don't go deep, the type of fish they're raising. So all of this comes into play, and yes, it's worth informing council on.
And
Because it can't be successful. It's not economic.
is there odors you experience?
Oh, the community, accessing it literally, as I say, we've emailed, I think, Councillor Hurst, yourself, and a couple, I don't know who else, that it's worth a drive along concession 2 anytime from the middle of June to early August. And when the weather's warm, with your windows up, driving at 50 kilometers an hour, you could have your eyes shut, not as the driver, but, and you would know when you passed these fish farms.
The statements that were made during that visit was, this is good for Ontario. And then I raised the odors, and the response from the operator was, well, it's just the same as spreading manure, they should just accept it. I have problems with that.
These are dead fish. This isn't, you know, manure. Manure is a consequence of healthy raising of animals. This is uneconomic raising of animals. In fact, it verges on animal cruelty to see literally dipping thousands of fish out of these aquaculture farms.
So to tie it back to the University of Guelph, I find it concerning without, you know, review from experts, from the township side or not, whether this is safe or, because it is our drinking water, ultimately is in the aquifers. So I would be concerned if the University of Guelph sees this as good for Ontario and, you know, something that is feasible there without proper oversight from the township at least. And, so that's the one component. Are you aware of what the revenue from the royalties received from the agri industry of the University of Guelph can use it for? Because we've spoke about, you know, their deficit and that's a whole other conversation, but at first I thought maybe this revenue was going to general operating funds, but I don't believe that's the case. It's not a heritage fund. Isn't it a property fund that this money goes to, or?
So actually, it's interesting because they responded in the article here. There's no restriction on the general revenues, the royalties directed to research were very specifically only for aggregate research. So that was very specific, but that's a small part of the royalties in general. Whereas the royalties in general, they said, the proceeds can be used for strategic one-time investments, protecting the university's operating budget from having to fund projects. So that is the Heritage Fund, enhanced by revenue generation by leased lands owned by the university, etc.
So that's the answer. They,
Yeah.
you know,
Heritage
it
fund.
says it goes into a heritage fund, but they can use it for operating expenses, one-time projects. So there's the motivation for the area operations, because they can use it to offset annual deficits, budget relief. So, okay, so that's good clarity. That wasn't my understanding. My understanding was going into a heritage fund. And then almost like the money was like a restricted reserve type of thing where, you can only use it for certain, but that's not the case.
Well, it
Then-
would be specific that it can't be used for operating funds. It can be used to protect operating funds by going
What's the
to,
difference there?
well, it's kind of like the latest, I think Mark Carney, our Liberal candidate, has just said he's going to separate out funding capital infrastructure costs from operating funds. He's going to run a no deficit operating funds because he's separated out capital costs.
So they can run a deficit on the capital side.
Huge, but operating will be, so
Tomatoes matter.
it's not apples and oranges, it's all apples, but
Um,
it's accurate and legal in the sense that they're not using it for operating.
Sure,
funds.
sure, but there's a motivation there because it can alleviate pressures on their operating budget.
Absolutely.
So then my other question, and you alluded to it already, is that there was a component of the royalties. I'm not sure, probably single digits for royalties paid for a research fund. Has the university had any communication with you of if that money has been used for any research?
In 2021, we specifically asked them to get back to us on any specific research that was being done. And as I say, they didn't get back to us in general, let alone on that issue. Certainly as people in the community, we're not aware of much active research given 25 years of research royalties being accumulated. Now, depending on what they phrase it in, you'll be aware that the rural community department has been looking into the effect of aggregate on farmland, for instance. So that might be one case of a project being funded, but certainly there are not many, and certainly not that reflect the total amount of dollars that should be.
Okay. I guess I'll circle back to the other lands. It's my understanding that the university has provided in writing that they do not intend to make new aggregate operations with their land holdings and postage. I'd like to see your group get them to reaffirm that to you and to even the township, put it in writing.
Which they did here.
They
The
did.
Mill Creek pit has approximately 3 years of extraction life remaining, and the university will not be engaging in further aggregate activity in the future. Dana Butler, Coordinator Special Products Strategic Priorities.
At Mill Creek, because it's gonna be exhausted or?
Well, it doesn't say that, it says the Mill Creek pit, but they say not engaging in further aggregate activity.
So I'd appreciate if you'd,
Clarification.
work that angle a little bit. So,
I would just point out one more paragraph in the university's or the students' article, where they said the operator of the site is responsible for emissions and environmental reporting, as well as protection of nearby lands and rehabilitation. And that's a direct quote from the administration this year. And you just go, how can the university do that? How can they step aside from their responsibilities when certainly in beginning, they made it very clear that this was going to be their priority in operating this aggregate pit
Well, we're aware that they were hauling in material from North Dumfries.
Yes,
And
in
processing.
the
it
last
there.
year.
Then they're not, in my opinion, the corporations, we've actually asked this question for clarification from M&R. This is being imported under a blending permission.
Mhm.
So this now means that's a permanent processing site, which makes it not in compliance with PPS, and then the list goes on and on. And then what you allude to in your, not allude to, you stated in your presentation, the torque fee is paid at the source of the material. So North Dumfries will receive the torque fee, the levy, as maybe known in common language, at North Dumfries. So they would haul it here, impact our roads, process it, and haul it out twice the impact. That's what you referred to. We're trying to address that. We're engaging them in our, it's one of the council's items we brought up, but for the university and other operators to engage in that practice is very disappointing.
It's not setting a standard, a new standard, no.
I guess lastly, you've asked council, you stated as residents and then as council members to go to the website, click on read the QR code. I would suggest if you're going to do that from your personal email, which I don't think need to be stated, but I'm saying it for the public. And I'll give you some advice. When I receive cut and paste emails, they don't carry as much weight. So I was glad to hear that individuals could go to your page and customize the email. Anyone doing that, I would suggest to them, even outside this horseshoe, is even if you customize it a bit, is better than none.
Mhm.
But a custom email penned, even if it's simple,
Mhm.
just means more. I just don't know. Anyways, I just like to see what your thoughts, however you pen them together. And, let's leave it at that.
Oh, I agree.
But I get what you
Personal is
did.
good.
I understand.
Simple is good for numbers,
Yeah.
personal is great to get an impact.
Yeah,
Um,
so, I will go and check it out, and if I'm going to do it, I will pen something myself, but I think it's a great initiative, appreciate it. I'll come back to Council Spillis, if Council's okay with that. As for the endorsement of the corporation, I do believe staff should review that before but
That
maybe.
makes sense, because you don't know what's on the website, just what I presented.
Don't want to jeopardize the little credibility we may have. No, we have maybe lots. Anyways, so Council Spillis.
As I mentioned before, I'm going to tag on the statement of Courtney. If you picked up on it.
Yes, I did. Just amending what we had, subject to staff's review. We'll take a look at that, and if it's something that we can endorse, we'll prepare something on our own and send it.
Okay, so let's move with Council Spillis. Councilor Bailey. Any comments or questions on that?
Just one, I'm supportive of the motion. I guess the only other piece that just occurred in part of the conversation was in regards to the aquaculture, exploring air, dust and noise impacts. And I'm up to my eyeballs in this in grain elevators right now. So I've lived the other side of Ministry of Environment requirements, and I'm wondering if staff can maybe explore specifically the air quality impacts. And that's a provincial jurisdiction is my understanding here, but it just occurred to me when you were explaining this, that's maybe a request that can get further refined offline, is to request further studies. And I don't know the aquaculture impact, how that gets caught in primary agriculture production versus commercial production. So there's some unknowns there, but I'm even happy offline to help explore that. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole here because it's not what you're here to talk about, but just when you mentioned that, John, I think there's something there.
Worth exploring.
Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
So we have moved second, right? Yeah, all in favor, that's to receive the delegation as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you, council. You always step up to it.
We hit above, what's our weight class? I know above our weight class, whatever that. I know it is. All right, so we did that consent. All right, we could read the consent.
That the consent agenda items listed for the February 20th, 2025 council meeting be received for information.
We have a move for that, please. Councilor Hurst, Councilor Spillis, any items to be removed? Councilor Bailey.
None for me.
Councilor Hurst,
No,
Mr. Goida?
6.8.
Mr. Spillis?
Yeah, 6.7, 6.8, 6.9, and 6.11.
Oh, too fast. 6.7, what were the other two?
Right after, next to after.
So 6.8 is duplication, 6.1, right?
6.11.
Okay, so we can receive the remainder of those. All in favor? Councilor Hirsch in favor, yeah, it's carried. Okay, Councilor Goida, 6.8.
So 6.8 is one of a few resolutions here that deal with, the US tariffs that are being proposed. And really, my only point that I wanted to bring up with this is from the township's perspective. You know, I don't exactly know if and what we are purchasing from the US. Staff did respond in the Q&A to say that there are purchases that are being made from the US, both small and large. And my sort of ask is just that, moving forward, that we, as much as possible, look for Canadian alternatives. And I know Councilor Sepulveda has a motion that deals with the same one, so maybe I'll pass it.
Maybe we'll just receive yours for information and then we'll just go to Councilor Goida, Spillis. So moved by Councilor Goida, second by Councilor Bailey. Any comments or questions for Councilor Goida before we vote on it? Okay. All in favor, please proceed out. Councilor Spillis, 6.6.
Yeah, this is in support of item 6, 7, 6, 8, 6, 9. And I basically paraphrased the Hanover motion. And proposing a motion that states, whereas United States President Donald Trump continues to indicate that will issue executive orders to impose tariffs on imports from Canada. And whereas these tariffs will have a significant detrimental impact on economic stability in both countries. And whereas federal and provincial leaders are encouraging Canadians to buy Canadian. And whereas municipalities have significant purchasing power through capital infrastructure programs. And whereas according to data from the AMO, Ontario municipalities expected to spend 290 billion on infrastructure in the next 10 years. And whereas municipalities have traditionally been prevented by trade agreements or legislation from giving preference to the purchase of Canadian products and services, and whereas municipalities can assist in the effort to combat tariffs and support businesses in the procurement for capital infrastructure programs, now therefore resolved that the Council of Township Listeners endorse the federal and provincial call to action to buy Canadian where and when possible, and that the federal and provincial governments work with municipalities on measures to protect Canadian consumers and businesses, and that council call on the federal provincial government to remove any impediments to municipalities preferring to engage Canadian companies for capital projects and supplies when appropriate and feasible, and this resolution be forwarded to the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Premier Doug Ford, AMO, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and all Ontario municipalities. So, Mr. Mayor, I think even though we're a small municipality, I think you have all municipalities in Ontario doing the same thing. It's become one big conglomeration of input to both the provincial and federal governments that we support buying Canadian. So I'd like to move this motion.
You have a seconder, please? Councilor Hirsch, all right. Councilor Bailey, you?
No, I thought I had read the resolution ahead of time and agree with it. I think it's a good plan. I think I'd like maybe in follow-up to Councilor Goida's is try to have an understanding of what that financial impact might be, because my assumption is that this may cost more to support. But I think that outweighs, I believe that the value that this proposal is outweighs sort of the cost of the actual financial cost. But it would be good to know what that looks like.
Hirsch?
Yeah, I'm supportive of just a filter at the staff level of when purchasing, just to tag it as best one can understand, because sometimes things are very commingled and it's difficult, but I think it's the right thing to do. I'll leave it at that.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I agree.
All in favor? It's carried. 6.11.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this municipality of Ontario, Huron is supporting, the Tatwell letter. I was wondering if you can update us on any further, activities regarding the groundswell momentum on, getting on, Tatwell.
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Spos. Most of the, what we're hearing is coming through these resolutions. I've had conversations with the executive director of TAPMO as recent as yesterday. And he's stating, the membership, continues to grow and we're getting paying members and support. At our TAPMO meeting, we did, direct staff to create the priorities for TAMO, and the taxation component is being moved down in the priorities. Because the province made the tax class, they've done what they've done, provided this subsidy, and we feel that there's no further room for discussion with, now, to raise it once in a while and remind them is fine, but the continued advocacy is going to come to an end. But, I feel that we've done a good job, we've created some education on it, and it's working its way slowly. Would I like to have seen more uptake on it? That would have been great, but I'm still happy to see the few we have. But as for direct, I'm not aware of, anything further, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Just a question, have you had any response from, the education, component? No, you haven't heard from any? Would there be value in reaching out to make sure they're aware of the situation and that there could be lower funding going towards education? I think that's a big deal. People would be quite upset about that.
I am certain the union that represents teachers is aware that this transpired. And I have not received any communication on it.
Would there be value in having the executive director reach out to them?
I think it's probably that I'm worried about jeopardizing our position with the government, right? Is what I'm worried about. I think any of that work is appropriate through TAMO. So, whether I don't know if we need to send a formal ask to TAMO. I can take that as a takeaway.
Yeah.
And have the board discuss it in a bit of that more education on what's transpired. It's disappointing that, there's colleagues I work with that are retired teachers and they're aware of what transpired. I'm just, I was surprised that it hasn't.
Just
received more
assuming
traction.
they're just not aware of it.
Yeah, I also know that the Liberal candidate leader for the provincial government is aware. The Green Party candidate is aware. I don't know if the NDP candidate is aware, and I have not seen anything in the news or any other debates, so nothing. So that's disappointing, but
That question tonight.
so I think I can take that take that back to the executive and, we can do a blast of important stakeholders that this tax class and subsidy that has been in place on the rural taxpayer and on the education component. And see if they want to send it out.
Okay, that'd be good. Thanks. Yeah.
Receive that for information. Okay, move by Councilor Rose, second. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Councilor Bill?
Yeah.
All in favor? That's carried. Meeting, correct? Public meeting, February 26, 2025 at 7 p.m. Open house for the Puslinch by Design study held in person at the Puslinch Community Center, 23 Brock Road South. Also, March 5th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Public information meeting held in person at the municipal office, 7404 Wellington Road 34. By electronic participation through Zoom regarding the zoning bylaw amendment, D14 WDD, part lot 31, concession 8, WDD Main Street 8, D14 WDD. That's the one I declared the Q&A on. So we just need to ensure that the other member of council is prepared to chair that one. Here, that's it for that.
Well, Mr.
Sorry.
Mayor, can I just talk about 8.2, the WDD? Are we comfortable that the venue here will be enough? Or if you live in that neighborhood, I don't know how much input there would be. I just would hate to see this place jam packed and not unable to accommodate. I don't know how serious the residents are taking this. I heard some grumblings, but
I think this would be fine.
With you, Mr. Chair, maybe we can talk about what we've received in feedback so far through the public notification.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, we haven't received many comments at this point in time. We will keep an eye on it. I believe we do have a hold at the PCC if we were to need to change venue, but at this point in time, we're not anticipating a need to.
I feel it'll be fine personally, but I won't be able to. All right. Any other comments? We can dive into the finance reports, correct? 9.2.1. What's it say in this? Yeah. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning. Sorry, my audio was not working. So hopefully everyone can hear me. So this report here is just regarding the donation policy. We brought it back to council after we've completed some public consultation as we previously recommended. And we are just hoping to obtain council's approval on the policy. The report discusses some of the changes that were made to the policy based on council's comments, committee members' comments, and the public's comments. So I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
So that report FIN 2025-003 entitled Donation Policy be received, and that council approved the donation policy attached to Schedule C to the report, either as presented or amended.
You're gonna move, come up, please. Councilor Willis, Councilor Hurst. Okay. Councilor Bailey.
Thank you. I just had a question about, maybe I'll read what's in the report. It says, should council want the township to prioritize any specific sponsorship or naming right initiatives in 2025, it's recommended that only 1 to 2 be prioritized and openly solicited as part of the 2025 corporate work plan based on current demands and resources. And I guess my question to staff is that actually a reasonable spot to put it in 2025? Or is this something that I'm thinking maybe we bump to 2026 once we have our donation policy in place, we see how things are going, and then we can start to zone in maybe on 1 or 2 sort of prioritize naming. What my thinking is, let's say we would like to encourage someone to have naming rights for one of the ball diamonds or something like that. So it would be work that staff would have to do to, you know, solicit some of this and go through a whole process. So is 2025 corporate work plan? It's very busy. Is there actually room for that in there, or is that something we can be slotting into 2026? And it more like as an economic development type goal. Thinking.
So I can maybe just start and then Ms. Hoyt Fox can add to it. So 2025 was just, I should have probably just said a future corporate work plan item. Given all of the priorities that we are working through, as you can see in 2025 and future years. So Courtney, maybe if you want to just add to that.
So through Mr. Chair, I think it's okay that we sort of have a placeholder for it. Our clerks and corporate services team is going to be the one really spearheading that initiative. So I think if we're able to do it in 2025, we'll bring that back to council. If it's something that we just have to carry forward, we can do that as well.
Okay. Is that something that can be an economic development initiative? And like, is there any assistance through county with something like that?
So through Mr. Chair, do you think that we've allocated like our funding, the grant funding that we get from the county's economic grants to other things? But they are very open to working with us. They like to know what we're doing, and we have regular meetings. Our communications coordinator meets with them regularly, so we can bring it up for sure.
Okay. Thanks. Otherwise, lots of work's gone into this. Thanks, Mary, to your team. I think it looks good so far.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. I echo Councilor Bailey's comments. I thought it's really good. I like when I went through it, I honestly, like when I was trying to pick holes in it, I was getting into the peripheral and, you know, rabbit holes to go down. So I think that's maybe a good place. I think the clarity I was looking for was on donated services, and I think that's been part of the Q&A. I think I had a lot of questions as to how one goes about that. So I think that was clear. Naming rights, I think was another one. Maybe one question I had there is, so let's say there's naming rights in a particular premises, ballpark as an example, and the company changes or sold halfway through that period, like what's the process for doing that if the company becomes insolvent or merges with a different one or changes names? So again, just these are all like really weird scenarios that I think I was starting to come up with. So maybe that was one question I had. I got two more quick ones, and if you don't have an answer right now, that's fine. I think it's more just stuff to ponder. Conflict of interest, I think that was important, just if we have a tricky situation. And I think the third one I had was, I just called it future transgression. So say we have a naming entity that does a donation or a sponsorship or a combination thereof, and for whatever reason becomes a untenable name on a public property. And that's one that's like, how do you delicately back out of something after it's done? And again, that's a tough one to answer right now, but those are the type of things I was thinking of for future consideration. So overall, like really good. As I said, I was getting down into some goofy situations.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think a lot of those are real issues that need to be contemplated, and we will have agreements that we can rely on, which can outline in certain circumstances what happens, like for example, insolvency. And we do rely on our policy around content and the proper content. We reference back to that specifically in this policy. So we have some fail safes, and the agreement being probably the biggest and most effective one.
And I'm good with that. I think it's just that's where my head was going. What could go wrong?
Yeah, I wanna echo Councillor Hurst and Councillor Bailey's comments. Mary, thank you very much for working through this and your staff. I know a lot of work has gone into it, and I know we were bugging you for a little bit to get it going, so I'm really happy to see how it's turned out. And I just also really want to commend you on incorporating the feedback from the committee, from council, from the committees, and from the public. I think it's really made it into a really great policy, and I really also liked the addition of the donor wall that you added in the most recent iteration. I think it's important that we recognize people who are donating and volunteering time, things like that in the community. So I thought that was a really great add. So I'm really happy with it.
Great, thank you very much. And I'd just like to take the time right now just to say that it was a very much a collaborative effort with myself and other departments, and of course, Daniel, our co-op student. So I'd like to thank everyone that was involved in this.
Well, I'd like to echo the sentiments expressed by the previous comment. Yes, a job well done. Just one question of Courtney. Do we have a lot of donations either in material or labor that are provided every year?
So through you, Mr. Chair, our director might be better to answer that, but I understand we don't have large dollar value amount donations very regularly. And maybe Mary would be able to speak to sort of smaller or in-kind donations that we receive.
Yes, so in the past, the smaller donations that we've received, whether it be at the gardens, I believe, or like those types of donations, we've just kept them as like separate from this donation policy. And that's why we added that clause in there regarding people's time and efforts, and that like this policy doesn't really apply to those types of informal gifts to the township. But I do agree with Ms. Hoyt Fox that we haven't had a lot of more significant donations, and that's why some of those thresholds were noted in the report. I would say in the last few years since I've been here, I've probably seen just a couple of more significant donations, and not too many for labor or time that being significant as well.
My reason for asking the question was, if do have a lot of these, donations, coming forward, I was wondering if a simplified flow chart, you may want to consider that in the future. I'm not worried about that now, but, if it becomes significant, maybe something like that might be a benefit in the future.
Okay, Greg, you were something? All in favor? Carried, good job, thank you. Don't go anywhere. 9.2.2, Mrs. Sam, I believe it's you, yeah.
Okay, so this is another annual report provided to council. It's typically provided after the through the budget approval process. These types of reports, the completed capital projects and balances in discretionary and restricted reserves, we do try to provide this annually to council, and it's in line with our audit processes as well. These are some tasks that we do annually, analyze this type of information and provide it to council for their information. I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
Recommendation, please, Ms. Hoyt Fox.
Report FIN 2025-005 entitled 2024 completed capital projects be received for information.
Can you move it, please, Councilor Boyd?
Yep.
Councilor Bailey? Any questions or comments for Councilor Bailey?
My question was answered in the Q&A, so thanks already.
Good.
Good. All in favor? That's carried. All right, 9.2.3. Maybe something here. This, see, I don't know. Yeah,
Again,
that's the-
another, oh, sorry.
it's not on the
No.
one I downloaded, but it's on this paper one. 9.2.3, go ahead, Mr. Sam.
So this is another annual report provided to council through the budget process. It links to the completed capital projects report. Basically, it provides current balances in our various reserves over the forecast period. Again, the balances over the forecast period are in fact estimates, because as we know, new information does come through the annual budget process. But this is a great report just to kind of show council where we're at with our various reserves based on the capital budget and forecast that we are working to approve today.
I think you read the recommendation, please.
Yeah, the report FIN 2025-006 entitled projected balances and discretionary and restricted reserves be received for information.
Can you move it, please? Councilor Hurst, Councilor Goyda?
Sure.
Any questions or comments for Mrs. Sand?
Just trying to see if this is the same report that I've written down. Mary, can you just confirm for me how the Heritage Financial Incentive Reserve is working? I see there was a contribution and a withdrawal, and then you've made reference to it also being within the administrative reserve or something. Can you just confirm for me your understanding of how
Yeah.
that is working?
For sure. I'm just going to go to that specific page. Just looking at the forecast here for that. So basically, the balance in the reserve as of December 31st, 2024 was about 19,000. That includes what we contributed to that reserve, the surplus advertising amounts that we had contributed to that reserve in previous years. And it also includes the surplus in that reserve from 2024, which I believe was about 8,287 or something like that. So we contributed that to the reserve. The withdrawals from the reserve in 2024 related to a plaque that we installed. And so that's been incorporated in there just based on the budget process and how we said that project through the 2024 budget process would be funded. So that's the withdrawal that you're seeing. There's again, contributions to that reserve over the forecast period. Basically, we've contributed 10,600 to that reserve in 2025 through the 2025 budget process. And if those funds don't get expended for the Heritage Financial Incentive Program, that money will stay in that reserve until the funds are expended.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
No problem.
That's what I wanted to hear. All right. I'm good.
Concerns, good.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the state of our asset management plan. Like we start getting into the red in 2028 and continue until 2033. And I'm concerned that all we're doing is just putting a bandage periodically on it and not addressing it properly. So I'm gonna suggest that we ask staff that we get perhaps a report that develops options to get us out of the red, like putting additional money in or asking for additional levy funds from our residents. And I don't think it's the right answer. I think we've got to look hard and realistically, what can we realistically afford to do, or should we do? Anything that's discretionary should be on the table to pull out. So my suggestion is we either have a staff report with staff outlining all the options, or we have a separate meeting where we brainstorm ideas. I really think we got to hit this hard and soon. I really don't want us as a council to leave a legacy for the next term of council that they're starting their term in the red type of thing, and then put the blame on us and saying we created this mess for them. So just wondering if we can have a discussion on that.
I think it's a good idea to have a special meeting. I feel that most of our meetings are pretty full as it is, so an additional meeting would be time served better. Because we could just look at that one topic, and I think that's a fair discussion to have. To look at the projects, see if ones can be deferred. Maybe the director could, we'd have a road that's planned to be done in 5 years and is, it can be delayed. I don't know, I'm just making up stuff, but I would be supportive of that. Let's have staff look at all the projected projects, which ones, if there are, sorry, what was the term you used, discretionary? And which ones are basically, if it's a bridge, it's a bridge.
Exactly.
Right, and we can maybe schedule a special meeting in July, August for that.
Mhm.
I was joking about July, August. Nobody laughed. Anyways, yeah, I think depending on your workload, I'm not sure if you have an idea of when you'd be able to compile that and.
So if you, Mr. Chair, will take that away, I've made note of it in the direction here, to report back before I commit to any times.
Yes.
Just, but we can then prioritize this and bring it back.
I feel what we're hearing is we don't want that report to be done in 4 years when we're in the red with the asset management plan, but
Understood.
as long as it's relatively in the near future. Do you want to even end of the year, by the end of the year? It's changing right now.
Yeah.
So is that good?
Yeah, and so Mayor, I just don't want to go to next year budget without a plan in place, what we're doing. Like, I know we have a lot of projects where I want to go, like even the gravel roads improvement project, to me, that's on the table too. Should do, new office modernizations should be on the table too, anything like that.
Yeah, it's fine. I also feel that as the year goes on, we might have indication of growth, some new substantial growth coming to the township, maybe not, whether it be posted by design component, whether it be residential. That will be part of my, decision.
Sure, absolutely.
But, yeah, it's all good. I think it's wise to take a look at all the projects and the funding and
Just on that note, my understanding, and the asset management plan came in before I came on, but my understanding is having the asset management plan helps take away some of us having to decide what projects come and go. I don't know if Mary can speak to that, but my understanding is the asset management plan should have us, down a path where we're not having to pull projects and take things out. It's just figuring out how we can get all those projects in a plan. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We go to new.
Sure, I can speak to that. So I know there were a lot of questions asked about the asset management system. And I just wanted to be clear for everyone here that the 2025 capital budget and forecast, it does reflect the latest information. So you may recall that the asset management plan was passed in 2019. And so there's been a lot of changes since then. So we have a roads management plan that was recently approved. We've had OSUM reports for our bridges and culverts, which have resulted in projects that we've had to incorporate in our capital budget and forecast that were likely not incorporated in the 2019 asset management plan. So we're continuously updating our capital budget and forecast based on the most recent information that we have available. So another portion of that is hopefully once the system is implemented, that we would update our 2019 asset management plan with all of this up-to-date information as well.
Yeah, and then I hope that we can see the projects. I just don't want us to get back to before the asset management plan,
No.
where it was, you know, who wants what project when, and it's not
My
planned.
approach is you start from the bottom up, the least priority, and
Yeah.
then you move up to the top. Like, there's certain things are untouchables.
Yeah.
Okay, those are the core things. Anything that's, further down the list of priorities are.
Yeah.
Are fair game.
Which has been great with our, reporting, and like how staff have done that. Here's our mandated
Absolutely.
expenses, here's our,
So these are estimates and are, you know, their best calculations. When we first came on prior to your tenure, Councillor Bailey, we had a similar report. It showed, I think the consultant recommendation was a 2% levy increase compounding for 4 years to fund the asset management plan. And even then we were like, holy moly, you know, how are we gonna do this? But then something changed, and I don't recall what changed, whether construction costs came down, something changed, which then changed the asset management plan, so then it wasn't a doom and gloom. Now we're in a cycle where construction costs post-COVID went through the roof. Now you're looking at tariffs. Now you're maybe, well, look at the gravel royalties way down. Things are slowing down. I don't know if we've tendered everything or what we're tendering off memory rate at this moment, but let's hypothesize that we go to tender for a bunch of projects and then they all come in under budget. My assumption would be, well, now we have a new calculation on the per kilometer road paving, the new bridge, and then that may change the asset management. So this thing is constantly moving. Does it warrant looking at it? 100%. And there is always the, you know, you can add some levy to fund the asset management plan. Do you need to do the max? No. Do you need to do a little? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you need to scrap. These are all great conversations to have. So right now we're in a period where construction costs, vehicle replacement costs, all those things are high. It's changed our forecast. Maybe we can get lucky and costs will start going back to some historical norms and help us on that front too. So it's more of how it's funded versus the projects in my mind. Because I think all the projects are pretty important, but if the funding is not affordable to the taxpayer, then you have to definitely revisit it. Does that help a little?
I like the idea of a special meeting.
Yeah, just that one topic. That's good.
I just, as we're talking here, so the asset management plan, the forecasted balance in it, as you said, is constantly changing based on market conditions, the reports that come in, things like that. But like from 1 year to the next, it can, like you can see, compare what it looked like in 2024 to what it looks like now, is dramatically different. And it's challenging to kind of stay on top of that all the time. And I know, we have this asset management software program that we're trying to get implemented. I don't know, and maybe Mary, you can answer this question. Would that help with some more to sort of like at any given moment in time, you could look at it and see how it's being impacted?
I can't answer that right now, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but I am hopeful that it'll make things more efficient moving forward.
I was just wondering, I know there's some challenges in terms of like the resources needed to implement that program. But if it's valuable to sort of get more information quickly so that we can make more informed decisions, would it make sense? Like, I don't know, is there, does the software company themselves offer some kind of I don't know, like transition, like UV can hire them to transfer it all over to the program for us? Or is there
Yeah.
a firm is it something we should be considering to get it implemented faster so that it makes, you know, this job of planning for the future easier and more efficient?
Yeah, so council did approve the co-op student to assist me with implementing the asset management system in 2024. So I think we're also obviously paying the service provider to assist us with implementing as well. It's a collaborative effort between staff, so myself, the co-op student, and the vendor, because we know our data a lot more than a third-party service provider. So the goal is to hopefully prioritize that for 2025. But unfortunately, there's been some issues in 2024 in terms of being able to work on this project. It's been deferred because there's been other projects that have been more critical.
So maybe as part of this special meeting, if there are additional resources that you need in order to get that implemented, maybe that could come back as information as part of that meeting.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea because by then I'll be able to know how much work myself and the software provider and the co-op student have been able to do from now until when we have that special meeting. So.
What do you have captured?
So to receive the report for information and that staff be directed to report back at a special meeting outlining options to address the estimated balances in the AM discretionary reserve and resources required to implement the asset software system in 2025.
Please, Councilor Spillis, Councilor Hurst, any last comments? Good, all in favor? That's carried. All right, 9.2.4. Mrs. Sand.
So this again is an annual report that's required in accordance with the Municipal Act at the time of budgeting, at the time of passing our budget. I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
That report FIN 2025-007 entitled Ontario Regulation 284-09, 2025 budget be received, and that council adopts report FIN 2025-007, which meets the requirements of Ontario Reg 284-09 and outlines the preparation of the 2025 operating and capital budgets to a public sector accounting board compliant format.
Can I get a mover, please? Councilor Spillis, Councilor Goida? All right, questions or comments? Councilor Bailey? Okay,
No.
I guess this one. Councilor Hurst?
No, I'm good.
Councilor Goida?
I'm good.
Councilor Spillis?
I'm good.
Yeah, you guys must have understood it better than I did. Okay, so I just, in layman's terms, the 2025 estimated ending accumulated surplus. It looks on paper that we're sitting on 36 million, and I recognize that's not the annual operating capital surplus. But that 36 million bucks, is that assets and money we collect on behalf of other agencies? And that's what that is, right?
Right. It's separate from the general surplus. Yeah.
Pardon me?
It's separate from the annual general, like it's a separate matter from the annual general surplus. So it includes all of our assets, our liabilities, and all of our tangible capital assets as well.
Right. So I'll just, when you're reading through it, sometimes it looks like, oh, they have 36 million bucks in investment sitting there. And if you have an asset management plan deficiency, why aren't they using that? But that's not the case. It's, anyways, just want to be clear of that because, I thought it could be interpreted that way. Okay, so we move a second. All in favor of that report? You, Terry, you were in favor. I didn't see it over. Okay. 9.2.5, this is Sandy.
So this is our final budget report. We've included the reiterative process that we've had to date in terms of the budget, including all of the meetings that we had in order to get to this stage, including some information about the public information meeting and the Engage Plus Lunch survey results, which have also been attached to the report. I've also reported back on some of the questions that were asked by council regarding the freezing of fees at the GRCA and some work that the clerk's department did with the Heritage Committee and the Puslinch Historical Society regarding the Killian School bell cairn. And so within the report, it kind of summarizes what was already presented to the public at the public information meeting and some of the trends that we're noticing in terms of the 2024 budget compared to the 2025 budget. And what the impact of the budget is on the median typical properties. And again, this was all reported at the public information meeting. So I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
The report FIN 2025-008 entitled the 2025 budget final be received, and that council approves the Puslinch Historical Society's design for the Killian School bell cairn, and that council directs staff to proceed with the project accordingly. And that council give 3 readings to bylaw number 2025-003, being a bylaw to adopt budget for the corporation of the township of Puslinch for the year 2025.
Move that, please. Councillor Hurst, Councillor Bailey. All right, comments or questions? Councillor Bailey.
No, I have no questions.
Councillor Hurst.
No, it was just the clarification that there had been no changes since the public information session, which I didn't note any, and that you verbalized that, Mary, so I'm good, thanks.
Councillor Goyda.
The only comment that I had was in regards to the public engagement piece. And there was some comments in the online survey feedback that there wasn't enough engagement, or the engagement was directed a certain way. I was just wondering, next year for the budget, when we do the survey component or the online engagement part of it, if we can add a blurb in there somehow to let the public know that that's not the only piece of engagement that we have on the budget, that we also have an in-person public meeting that they can attend if they want to speak more broadly and openly about issues that maybe aren't being asked on the survey, just as using the opportunity of those who are doing the survey to also educate the public that there are also other opportunities to engage.
I just want to make a comment as well, something that Councillor Goyda made last time around we discussed the budget. We're looking at 4.1% increase, whereas I believe Dr. Hermosa was under 4%, but the dollar amount that they have to pay per household is significantly more than what we're paying. So even though we're at 4.1 and Guelph Hermosa's at 3 point something, what we're paying, what our homeowner for our average home is paying a lot less than what they are paying. So anybody who wants to look at the absolute percentages should drill down one level down and see what that impact is on their home. So that's my only comment I have for the residents. I think this is too high.
I will add to your comments. Guelph Hermosa also increased their projected revenues from rentals to reduce projected impact. So maybe they'll be, fortunate that their projected revenues will meet what they're putting in their budget, but if they're not, then we'll have to be, adjust it for a surplus. So you know what I mean? So we can put our projected revenues to $100,000. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but so that's one avenue. And also Guelph Hermosa would not have been affected by the implementation of the rural taxpayer subsidy by the Ministry of Finance as much as we have. They didn't have as many aggregate pits. So you stated that, just a conversation offline with myself. I think you said, well, we would have been at 3.9 or 3.8 if that subsidy hadn't have been implemented, right? So GE, they got it on two sides. They didn't get affected by the aggregate subsidy as much as us. And that revenue increase was one tool that I kind of made interesting. So, but I agree with what you're saying as well. It's just, what are we, 52 or $53 per house or something? So back to the, that conversation, we're gonna have that separate meeting on $50 and everything we're doing. Yeah, I guess that's not related.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. Anything further? No. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. We're just moving along here. 9.2.6. See you again, Mrs. Sam. Oh, actually, hold on, time out. I want to back up. I forgot. I wanted to speak to Councilor Goyes. The comments from the public about the engagement. I agree with you that there's other opportunities and that would be good to add, but also can we make, so, I'm sorry, I got two more things on. It was great to see that the people answering the survey, the education component is working because like, is this service with the county? So that was very rewarding. The people that responded understood where their tax money was going, and we've been trying to push that message out. So that's great. Did I hear from them that, well, you know, you're using this survey as an education piece? Okay, yes, we were, but it's just been frustrating when in the past we've heard complaints like, well, that's a county service, has a county impact. So with that being said, I also heard that they wanted an opportunity to just voice their concerns freely. Is it possible or appropriate that we do a similar type survey that you have to complete it first, and it can't be too onerous, you know, 5, 6, 7 questions of things that maybe we've flagged as not being understood in the community, so it's an education component, and then it's free reign. If you want to type away for 2,000 words, give her.
Through Mr. Chair, the section of the survey where we received some of those comments is a section that is an open essay, so
So
the public is welcome to kind of include as much detail as they would like in that section. I'm not sure if the feedback was that they were looking for us to pull out specific sections
yeah, it was.
for discussion. But that certainly is an opportunity that's included in that survey for them to
You
share
need to
their.
literally say that.
view. We can add that,
You
yeah.
know, here's your section to identify. So
We can-
with that, I would also want to prompt them that if your desire is to reduce services, please indicate which services you would like to see reduced to, you know, because it's easy to say, well, you should reduce services to keep taxes below inflation or at zero. Okay, that's probably a fair position. But which ones is it? Is it plowing roads? Is it plowing sidewalks? Is it, you know? We need to hear that because it's too broad of a statement and it might not be informed enough. So knowing which services you feel other people should be impacted on not having as much of would be helpful in decision making. So little tweaks there, I think would be good. That's it. Sorry to go backwards, probably procedurally completely incorrect, but. Okay, now back to 9.2.6. Mrs. Sam.
Okay, so this 9.2.6, it's a community improvement plan, execution of a financial assistance agreement. Again, this was work that we did collaboratively amongst various departments. And so it was recommended by the committee that we approve a financial incentive of $4,500 for this applicant. And so the next steps associated with this are entering into a financial assistance agreement with the applicant upon council's approval of this application. I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
So it's to receive the report and the council give 3 readings to bylaw number 2025-030, being a bylaw authoring the entering into a financial assistance agreement with the corporation and Nadia Bismillah Lang and Gustav Carolee Lang under the Township of Pleasanton Community Improvement Plan, and the council directs staff to bring back a delegated authority bylaw for the purpose of delegating council's authority to approve CIP applications and the CIP financial assistance agreement.
Move that, please. Councilor Harris, Councilor Bailey. Also any questions? Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, just a clarification question. I did see a couple, the different quotes that were in there. So they're talking about 2 different aspects. There's the signage and then there's the upgrade to the windows. Is that what I'm reading in the report?
Yes.
Okay, and the signage, thanks for the rendition, whoever sent that through. Is it a lit sign that they're proposing on the brick wall?
Ms. Brotherston, can you speak to that aspect of the sign?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I know in the initial application, there was discussion about I think an internally illuminated sign, whether or not that is what they'll proceed with, I'm not sure. If they were, there is possibility that a variance would be required, due to the proximity of, residential uses in that area as well, being the core mixed use.
Okay.
So we have not received a sign permit application.
Okay, I wasn't sure how that process went. They had to have submitted that ahead of time or not. No, I think this is a really, really neat building, and it's really, everyone in the community traveling through, will see it, so it'd be nice to see some upgrades or improvements to it.
Yep, well said, Counselor Bailey. I think this is the type of projects that are encouraging. So I'll leave it at that.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I'll just have one suggestion under the process. I'd like the staff to come back with a report to see if something like this and other similar elements can be delegated to staff. Like, I look at this, it's time consuming for staff to prepare a report, time consuming here at council debate it. But there's a way of streamlining the process to make it easier for our staff to have delegated authority on this or any other similar type low-level agreements. I would be in favor of supporting delegation staff.
Mr. Chair, I have that in our draft recommendation. I'll add a report to it as well so that we can look at other items that we might be able to include in that delegated authority bylaw. Where it makes sense.
And if it's delegated authority and it's declined by the staff, will there be a mechanism for the applicant to appeal to council?
Mr. Chair, we can word it in such a way where we still have the ability to bring it to council if it is something that's maybe a little bit needs that input.
I just want the options, flexibility into the bylaw. All right, good. Who seconded that for the,
Council Hurst and Council Bailey.
so there's a slight amendment to that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Receive the report. Okay. All in favor? It's carried. Excellent. All right, Mrs. Sam, 9.2.7.
Wonderful news. We have been approved for the Community Emergency Preparedness Grant. Daniel Hernandez, our co-op student, assisted us with applying for this grant with Mike Fowler and myself. And so we've been approved for 50,000. And so the purpose of this report is to have council authorize us entering into an agreement with the Treasury Board for the grant. And again, sorry, the grant funding is for replacing the generator at the Puslinch Community Center. I'd be happy to answer any of council's questions.
Your recommendation.
Yes, so to receive the report and the council give 3 readings to bylaw number 2025-031, being a bylaw authorizing entering into an agreement with the Treasury Board for the Community Emergency Preparedness Grant.
Okay, can I get a move for that, please? Ms. Spos, second Councilor Hurst. Any questions or comments? Ms. Spos?
Yes, the fact that we're getting a grant, is that assumed in the budget already?
I'm not 100% sure, just based on the timing of when we received that grant. We tried to update the budget with that type of information, but I can look.
And my understanding was that we had generators added into the asset management plan a few years ago because this one or something came up due and it wasn't part of the asset management plan, it was gonna be levied, so there was, I'm pretty sure the direction to say, hey, that asset needs to be in the AMP, so maybe.
I'm not discounting, so
For the funding of it.
Yeah,
Funding of
exactly.
it, I know, if it was in levy, that's gonna help the budget if it's.
Absolutely.
But I think it might have been coming from asset management plan, but it's the same.
So because this is a generator in a recreational facility, it was funded by the cash in lieu of parkland restricted reserve, but now that we've received this grant funding, 50,000 of it will be funded by this grant.
Been hearing the name a lot lately, this Daniel co-op student.
Thank you, Daniel.
So, sounds like he's been doing a good job for the township and being a co-op student. I'm sure he could be an adult student, but never know, he's new, but he's probably beginning his career. Is there any value in, if, I want staff to consider, you know, a letter of recommendation or acknowledgement of the hard work and that, maybe the mayor can sign it. Something he could use, going forward, because I've been hearing his name quite a bit. Sounds like you're very impressed with him as well, Mrs. Sam. I don't mean to put words in
I'm
your
very
mouth, but
impressed, yes. That's a great idea.
pass
Thank you
on-
very much.
Pass on our thanks to this, to Daniel for working so hard for us and appreciate it.
Good job, Daniel.
Good job, Daniel. Yay, Daniel. We have a mover in a second.
Yeah.
I had no idea where we
Yeah,
are.
we do. We're good.
All right, so council comfortable, just staff preparing a letter he can maybe use.
Yep.
Future.
Good idea.
Okay, all in favor? It's carried. All right.
And then I'm doing now.
9.3.1. Peter.
Mr. Chair, this is the report regarding the 2024 annual water report for the drinking water system at the Central Community Center as required under Reg 170-3.
Make your recommendation to read.
Yeah, so it's to receive the report and that the 2024 annual water report be submitted to the ministry and the applicable agencies as outlined in the report.
Mover, please. Councilor Goida.
Yeah.
Councilor Spillis. Questions or comments for staff? All in favor? It's carried. Oh, I'm missing another one. 9.32, corporate work plan update.
We're under separate covers.
Oh, that's why. Okay. Well, I'll dig that up.
I can get.
I'll figure it out. Who's reporting on you?
So if you, Mr. Chair, this is our annual report, just outlining the corporate work plan items. We have made a couple changes here, just to note. So we have sort of shifted the timing that's included in the corporate work plan. Just in speaking with senior leadership, it makes sense to include the first quarter of the following year. So we've extended it out until March of 2026, as many projects do carry over. So that's the one change. We've noted projects in a different format as well. You'll see in the actual chart, we're doing them by department. So in the first column, you're going to see the department that's leading the initiative. And then you'll see in the second column, the supporting departments that are going to be collaborating on it as well. That will just maybe give a clearer understanding of who's participating in what. You'll notice that anything highlighted in pink, staff are recommending either it is in 2027 or we're recommending that it occur in 2027. And that's just based on based on priorities in 2025 and 2026. There was nothing too significant there that's being shifted out in staff's recommendation. And this includes anything that's come through budget in our asset management plan, anything where we regularly review or it's a regular activity or things that are being suggested by staff. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and you guys will see this again throughout the year with some updates as well.
All right, can you read the recommendation, please?
Yes, so to receive the report and that Township Placentia Council direct staff to proceed with finalizing the document as presented or amended and report back to council regarding the process throughout the year.
All right, can you move over for that, please? Councilor Hurst, Councilor Bailey, any questions or comments? Councilor Bailey?
Just a question, no issue with bumping it out, but there's a website redesign as one of the projects on here. Is that an update to the website, or is there gonna be a huge overhaul, or what's kind of the expectation with a redesign?
So with you, Mr. Chair, I don't anticipate like a rebranding exercise because we went through that, as we know. But looking at, I mean, we look at it regularly for capacity, so for storage space, things like that. But it's a good practice to look at how are our pages being presented. Is there a better way? Are we having navigation issues with the public maybe not being able to find things? So it's that sort of an exercise, and we're pushing it off simply because of the election in 2026.
Because I think it's a good website. I feel like it navigates really well. I haven't heard any, grumblings or people not being able to find things. So, anyway, that's all. Thanks.
Okay.
No questions. It's a helpful document, I find, just to track progress over the course of time and what's prioritized. Good.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a great document and certainly, lets the, residents look into what's happening here. It's, nothing, covert. It's all open for anybody to look at and, ask questions about.
Is there supposed to be a key that says what each color represents, like gray and pink, obviously, or whatever colors is post? Can
So through Mr. Chair, the different colored grays are just to separate the
all the
items.
different items
Yes.
so that they don't blend all together?
Yes, and
They don't indicate priority or.
No,
anything
none of
that
that.
nature?
Yeah, and then we did add a column. Obviously the start and complete estimated dates, but we also included a progress column, which is helpful, so you know, like if we started on something.
I like that.
There's a lot of things. There's items I don't feel should trump others that have been recently brought up, since there were so many already on the work plan, but I'll let staff triage those. Federal priorities, but no, good work. You guys are busy.
How many items are there on that list?
Yes, so I believe there's 118 is what is in the report. We've had, years with more items, but I think this work plan includes some pretty substantial projects. So we have system implementation, we have AMPS, we have larger scale projects, so, we will be busy.
AMPS is a huge priority. Where's the gun club on here? You see that coming back, sorry.
Yes, it is on here, and I believe we are anticipating that to be complete by April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Clearly missed it, but it's fine. All right, I'm very much, I'm over second, all right? So, any last kick of the can here? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. 9.4.1. And we're going to take a break and then.
Did you want to take care of bylaws or anything, but our schedule's going at noon.
Sure, sure. There's no correspondence, council reports.
Mayor reports.
Oh, man. Report. So I'll talk a little bit about TAPMO, because we did have an executive meeting. Were you at that one? Or did you just?
Yeah, I was there.
And we have a lot of meetings, so it's hard to remember. So I spoke to it briefly with some members here for the council meeting, but TAPMO executive met. They're going to list of 5 or 6 priorities. The taxation was number 1 for the longest time. That's generally come to fruition because of the decisions made by the Ministry of Finance. Doesn't mean it's going to be delisted entirely. It's just going to be moved down, and TAPMO executive, and I'm in agreement, desire to focus on the Auditor General's report, the enforcement component, you know, challenges around licensing, those types of things. Also received delegation from Gravel Watch, where they brought forward, you know, the resolutions around air quality standards. We spoke of that around the fish farming. At this point, I believe the direction from TAPMO was to just basically pause, because Caledon has passed their OPA, which includes these standards, and is at the ministers for approval. So TAPMO is waiting for the decision to come out of the ministry, and when we see that decision, then we'll then review it and we'll push it out to our members if there's components that are applicable or supportable. But at this point in time, we're just kind of basically waiting for the ministry to make a decision. Anything else other than we talked about? I think that's about it. Well, I feel that's well, there was family day. I wasn't able to attend. With my family that day, we had made some plans, but if anybody else was able to attend, then we'll give you the floor. But from some positive comments on social media as of late, it seemed like it was a great event, and thanks to Public Works for removing tons and tons of snow to make that facility accessible. And maybe it wasn't what we're typically used to experiencing with accessibility, but pretty sure you did a darn good job to make sure that the event could be held. I haven't seen that amount of snow on Brock Road sidewalks in a lot of years, and I know we're working towards clearing that as well. But Family Day was good. I don't feel there's really anything to report from the county, so I guess that's all I have for now.
I was just gonna, talk about last night, we had the, OPP safety meeting, community safety meeting, so I think Sarah said there were over 50 people showed up for the event, so it was well attended. What were there, 7 OPPs?
6 or 7.
Yeah, representatives, so auxiliary and detachment, and it was a good 2-hour, hour and a half presentation, and then some really good engagement questions at the end, and I thought it was really successful. They did some fraud talk, and then how to sort of safeguard your house for any break-in enters, and then ended with a bit of statistics, which was, I think the public really liked hearing the local kind of numbers and things that were coming up. So it was a great event. I think it was successful, and I appreciate staff putting that on last night, because it was 9:45 by the time we left last night. So that was a late night.
Yeah, just maybe to echo the Family Day events, maybe 2 comments for me is I brought both my kids and it was a packed house in the PCC, so a shout out to the staff. I thought the accessibility was good considering the amount of snow that had come within that 48-hour window, and just a kudos to the Optimist Club for hosting that. Like, my take would be there was like, they had to bring more chairs at the PCC for the people there, so that's a really good thing. And you know, from a counselor standpoint, great utilization of the township's assets. It's great that we have facilities that are available to community groups to host these type of events on Family Day. And that just an observation from my standpoint is we didn't have these type of facilities, these type of events couldn't even happen, right? So it was a super positive event from my perspective.
And the rink's in great shape.
Yes,
That was.
and the tarps worked well. It wasn't that cold in there.
It's cold this year. Excellent. That's good.
No, I don't have any updates, but, yeah, I would say to both Councillor Bailey and Councillor Hurst Point, thank you for, hosting the event last night. I'm really happy to hear that there was good attendance for that. And, thanks to staff for all the work for the Family Day event. So every year it seems to be a really great event as well. So thank you.
Yeah, with regard to the item we discussed with Kyle Davis, the Grand Christie Court, the James's construction permit to take waters back in December and January. We had a source water protection committee meeting end of January, and what they had put on the agenda was Kyle Davis's correspondence to the MOECP, the city of Guelph, and the region of Waterloo. And I made a motion that requesting the committee to advise the MECP that committee supports the recommendations before, and they supported it.
Excellent. Would it be appropriate to send a thank you letter to the Optimist for thank staff, because it's a multi-organizational to have Family Day. But they put a lot of volunteer hours into that one, and it's a good community event, so we could send a thank you letter and I'll sign it. Council's probably okay with it, right? Just recognize it. Okay, so we're gonna move our second to receive bill of mayors and the councilors, what do we call it? Council reports. Councilor Bailey, Councilor Hurst, all in favor? That's carried. You want to do bylaws, Ms. Whitehouse?
And then we're going to close.
Excellent.
So the following bylaws be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2025-030 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a financial assistance agreement for a CIP. Bylaw 2025-031 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement with the Treasury Board. Bylaw 2025-032 being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw for the property 4120 Wellington Road 35. And bylaw 2025-003 being a bylaw to adopt the budget for the township of Plessance for the year 2025.
Councillor Hurst, Councillor Lewis, all in favor, it's carried. Woo. Next.
Session, so the council should go into closed session under section 239 of the municipal act for the purpose of a confidential report regarding personal matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and this is in relation to a human resource matter, confidential report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or the local board, and that's in relation to a bylaw enforcement matter in accordance with section 3.14C of the township bylaw complaint policy. Confidential report regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and this is in relation to the Recreation, Community and Wellness Advisory Committee appointment. Confidential report regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, again about the Youth Advisory Committee appointments, and then the confidential minutes from previous closed meetings.
Great, Councillor Corbett, Councillor Lewis, all in favor, it's carried. All right, thank you, everyone. That's what I you have some resolutions.
The council moves into open session at 3:11 p.m.
Can we move that, please? Go ahead, Councillor Lewis, all in favor, it's carried. Next.
The council receives the confidential report regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. It was in relation to human resource matter. Confidential report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. This is in relation to a bylaw enforcement matter. Confidential report regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual. This is in relation to a committee, two committee appointments. And then the confidential minutes from previous closed meetings, that staff proceed as directed, and that council gives 3 readings to the following bylaws. Bylaw 2025-026 being a bylaw to appoint Beth Charles and Margaret Howard to the Recreation and Community Wellness Advisory Committee, and bylaw 2025-037 being a bylaw to appoint Nimrit Bassi to the Youth Advisory Committee.
Can we move for that? Councillor Bailey, Councillor Hurst, all in favor, it's carried. Is that it for you? Okay, any business arising from the closed session? It's basically what you just covered. Notice of motion. No, any new business? No. Dormitory bylaw, please, with five bucks.
Following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2025-034 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the township of West Lynch. This meeting held on the 20th day of February 2025.
Can we move it, please? Councillor Hurst, Councillor Lewis, all in favor? Carried and adjourned.
Council hereby adjourns at 3:13 p.m.
Move, please. Councillor Lewis, Councillor Goida, all in favor? Thank you, everyone.